Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving into a genuinely fascinating analysis by Mario Herger from July 2026. We're looking at a completely bizarre situation unfolding in our cities right now. Highly advanced autonomous vehicles, like robotaxis, are just constantly running afoul of basic city parking enforcement. It's this wild clash of futuristic tech running headfirst into deeply entrenched, old-school rules. Let's get right into it.
So think about this for a second. Why are high-tech cars constantly getting parking tickets? I mean, you have a super intelligent robotaxi, right? It's loaded with LiDAR, radar, cutting-edge AI. It can seamlessly navigate chaotic city traffic. It dodges jaywalkers. It makes split-second safety decisions. But somehow, it fails completely at something as totally mundane as waiting by the sidewalk for a passenger. How does a multi-million-dollar AI get bested by a local parking meter?
Let's look at Section 1, the ticket trap. Just to wrap our heads around how often this is happening, we have to look at the sheer scale of the fines companies like Waymo are racking up. Look at this number, $9,325. According to Herger's analysis, since they started operating in Austin, Texas in 2024, Waymo has accumulated over $9,000 in fines in that city alone. And these range from tiny $20 slap-on-the-wrist infractions to some pretty massive hits. In fact, on September 11, 2024, they got slapped with their highest penalty to date just for stopping in a handicap spot.
And this definitely isn't just an Austin issue. It's happening in San Francisco, too. In 2024 alone, Waymos got hit with 589 tickets there. The total cost? Over $65,000. Now, the author those point out that getting a ticket in San Francisco is famously easy anyway. Human drivers got 1.2 million tickets that same year. But the rate at which these high-tech, strictly rule-following vehicles are getting penalized is just staggering.
So what's actually triggering these fines? Well, looking at the Austin breakdown, the AI isn't going rogue. We're seeing 64 tickets for towaway zones, 13 for unpaid meters, and 9 for double parking. The really crucial takeaway here is that these autonomous vehicles aren't parking just to hang out. They're getting trapped in hostile urban infrastructure. They're literally just trying to do their job, but they get caught in towaway zones or end up double parking just to function on the street.
Which brings us to Section 2, waiting for passengers.
The practical reality of all this is that robotaxis don't pull over to grab a coffee. They just flow with traffic until they have to wait for a passenger. But look at the total absurdity of the local laws they are hard-coded to follow. San Francisco's taxi curb law says a taxi has to be within 18 inches, that's about 46 centimeters, of the curb during pickup and drop-off. If you've ever driven in a major city, you know getting within 18 inches of a curb on a street packed bumper-to-bumper with parked cars is basically impossible. The space literally just doesn't exist.
And here's where we see a massive behavioral gap between a human driver and a machine. If a human taxi driver pulls up and spots a parking warden, they adapt, right? They bend the rules, they honk, or they just circle the block to dodge the ticket. But the robo-taxi? It just patiently waits. It is completely oblivious to the parking warden walking up to it. The uncomplaining AI sits there for up to 5 minutes, waiting for a passenger who's taking their sweet time, and it just eats the ticket. The machine's greatest strength, its infinite patience, is exactly what makes it vulnerable here.
Let's move into Section 3, the legal gray area. This is the absolute heart of the legal friction. We are trying to govern 21st century driverless technology using super strict 20th century laws. To see just how outdated this framework really is, the source points to German traffic law. It clearly distinguishes between stopping and parking. Stopping is an intentional pause of less than 3 minutes without leaving the car. Parking is stopping for anything over 3 minutes, or when you physically get out and leave the vehicle. This perfectly illustrates how our whole legal framework relies completely on human presence. Which immediately raises a massive logical flaw. Who leaves the car if it's driverless? You literally cannot legally define parking based on a driver leaving the vehicle when there is no driver to begin with. The legal definitions get completely blurry, or honestly, they just become totally inapplicable when it comes to autonomous cars. Here is Section 4, the real parking problem. So, if the AI is just trying to do its job, and the law straight up doesn't make sense anymore, what's the actual core issue? Well, Herger introduces a fascinating plot twist here. The robotaxis aren't actually failing at parking. Our outdated infrastructure is failing them, and by extension, it's failing the public. Referencing Donald Shoup's highly influential book, The High Cost of Free Parking, the source argues that cities severely underprice public space for private cars. we've essentially decided as a society that storing empty metal boxes is the best use of our public streets, completely surrendering our valuable curb space to stationary, subsidized private cars.
Because private cars are hoarding all this curb space, the public gets denied crucial infrastructure, things like safe pickup and drop-off zones, outdoor dining, and quiet zones. According to the author, there's just no room left for shared mobility. When you call a Waymo, you expect it to pick you up exactly where you're standing, especially if you've got a bunch of groceries, a stroller, or if you use a wheelchair. But because the curbs are monopolized by parked cars, the robotaxi is practically forced to break the law just to pick you up safely. And finally, Section 5, the first principle. If we actually want a future with safer, cleaner, autonomous transportation, we have to return to first principles. The proposed solutions here directly address the root cause. We need to reduce private parking spaces, we need to increase parking fees to reflect the true value of public space, and we've got to create dedicated robotaxi loading zones. The ultimate takeaway from the source is crystal clear. Instead of writing more and more regulations just to penalize advanced robotaxis for trying to pick people up, cities have to rethink public space. We need to shrink the footprint of stationary cars to make room for shared transportation.
Which leaves us with a lingering question. Who actually owns the street of tomorrow? Are our future cities going to keep prioritizing idle, empty private cars taking up massive amounts of public space? Or are we going to redesign our curbs to prioritize moving people efficiently and safely with new technology? It's a question literally every major city is going to have to answer as these autonomous vehicles become a permanent part of our daily lives. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. I hope it gave you a totally new perspective on the future of our streets, and I'll catch you on the next one.